Hey, what's good everyone? Welcome back to the channel. We are finally back in Master Classic for Season 7 of GBL, and I'm happy to report that there are no level 41.5 Dialga sightings, which means we can get right back into exploring the format, taking a look at some common team configurations and cores within this meta. So today's team consists of Togekiss, Groudon, and Giratina-O. Groudon, which I powered up on tonight's stream, being able to pilot it for the very first time. And this is a pretty interesting team. I'm seeing it quite a bit on my climb, and I'm not sure who popularized it, but it is very strong against the Giratina Origin lead with the Melmetal in the back. So here you have Togekiss to catch out the Giratina Origin, and you have double Melmetal counters in the back, especially with the backup on the Groudon in case there's a Dialga in the back as well. So this team does lose to some common teams in the meta right now. The Kyogre, Dialga, Togekiss line punishes this team very heavily, and then also on top of that, the Melmetal, Dragonite, and Dialga team, the two Butters team, also punishes this team quite a bit. However, it is a very I wouldn't want to say rock paper scissors, but it is a very cyclical relationship. So it is able to cover those teams, the other teams, quite well. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the IVs. I do have a 15 attack Togekiss to potentially win CMP, but the most important IV on Togekiss is the 14 defense, which allows you to gain a bulk point against the mirror. So this way you have a simultaneous KO against enemy Togekiss versus being able to be fainted out first with the charm damage. The other IVs that are important is the defense on the Giratina-O. However, I covered this in a previous video, and it is a charm bulk point against Togekiss, a matchup that you will be losing anyways. Other than that, my Groudon has 15 attack to be able to force a coin flip CMP in the mirror, but besides that, the other IVs satisfy the requirements for Master Classic. So let's go ahead and take a look into the battles. I will say before we get in that these battles were done in the mid 3000s, so very slow queue times, and I wanted to show you guys a little bit more, but it took so long to find the battles that I wound up eventually giving up, and I plan to tank back down to maybe the 2800s so we can have more battles and more content later this week. Alright, so getting into our first matchup against Robert CR5, I'm leading Togekiss into Giratina Origin. So this is basically what the team is designed to do, is to punish the Giratina Origin lead, because we expect that their backline is going to be lining up with ours very, very well. So I'm going to expect to maintain that switch advantage, and my opponent is going to swap out immediately into a Mewtwo, which I can meet with the Giratina-O. So this matchup is pretty good. Giratina-O is much more tanky than Giratina Origin, which means you're going to be able to tank 2 side strikes before you have to make a decision on whether you need to shield or not. And although the Shadow Sneaks, it's not a very hard-hitting move, it's still going to be super effective against Mewtwo, and you can see it's already accrued quite a bit of Shadow Claw damage. So right there, my opponent goes for the Shadow Ball, and I'm going to go for the Shadow Sneak in return. And my opponent decides to shield here, which I played as the Mewtwo quite a bit of times with Shadow Ball, and I really dislike going for the Shadow Ball there because I'd rather just get 2 side strikes with 2 more Psycho Cuts of energy. But because our opponent shielded here, it's going to take a while for him to get to the next move, and that means that I can just match shields here, and then Giratina-O will still end up winning this matchup. So just because the Shadow Claw damage, it just does so much. So here I get to, I wound up shielding the Side Strike, of course, to match the shield of my opponent, and then I wound up going for the Shadow Sneak here, and my opponent decides to let this go, and I get an extra Shadow Claw as compensation. And I'm expecting the Alter to come back, or the Origin to come back in here, which means that I can get to this Dragon Claw right before I go down. So right now I'm in a pretty good position, having answered the Mewtwo swap in, and I just need to find out what's in the back. So my opponent's going to farm all the way down, but it's okay. Togekiss is pretty tanky, and it can tank a Shadow Ball if needed. So here my opponent is going to throw energy, and expecting this to be a Shadow Ball, there's really no reason to throw an Ominous Wind here. At this position, even if Origin got the boost, it would still go down very quickly to Charm. So I'm going to take the Shadow Ball here because I don't know what's in the back, and my opponent swaps into a Groudon. So what I do here is probably a mistake. I try to charge up to a move and then catch the Fire Punch, but my opponent is very aware, so he doesn't throw energy, and I'm kind of in a bad spot here, but I have to call this charge move here. So in this position, I figured that because my opponent already has the energy lead, there's no reason for them to bait with Fire Punch, so I am going to shield the first attack. And you can see it's an Earthquake here, which in this position, it's going to take an Earthquake and some change to KO. So I decide to also go straight for the Earthquake in case I can catch them off guard. They have to protect the health of this Groudon because the health of their Origin is very low. And because the charm damage had actually accrued onto this Groudon, it's right now in Earthquake range for a full KO. So although I wound up taking some Earthquake damage, I'm going to reach my second Earthquake before he gets to another charge move. and this is going to KO the enemy Groudon, and all it means is that Giratina Origin is going to come in, and I'm going to hit the Fire Punch right before. So although Fire Punch is resisted by that Dragon typing, I'm still going to be able to take out the Giratina Origin, and clicking on my Togekiss here, but I don't need it to win. So in that particular situation, the team lined up very well, and I was able to get a victory, but that just goes to show you how punishing this team can potentially be to the Giratina Origin lead. Okay, for our second match here, I'm going to be going up against Nuclear, and I'm going to be leading Togekiss into the Togekiss mirror. So here, because my Giratina Altered is actually very weak to Togekiss, my preference is to stay in against the Togekiss mirror, but my opponent here dips out, and I can see that the new Landorus is coming into play here. So this is kind of a tricky one because the new Landorus does actually hit very hard, so I wasn't sure at this point if Giratina Ultra could take it on 1v1, and obviously you don't want to be bringing Groudon into this matchup because Landorus with that flying typing is going to resist the Earthquakes, and then Fire Punch is not a very strong move. So my decision here was to do 4 Charms, Shield a Stone Edge, and then bring in the Giratina Altered, knowing that I have taken some of the health down on this Landorus. And here my opponent is going to throw, this is a Stone Edge, it's going to hurt a lot, so I'm going to wind up shielding this up. And then I'm going to bring in my Giratina Alters. So at this point, the Shadow Claws are going to start adding up because Therian, Landorus, and the Incarnate version are both very glassy. And I'm going to go beat him to the first Dragon Claw, and my opponent decides to take it here, which means that I can take a Stone Edge and comfortably farm down. So in this particular case, I'm expecting the Togekiss to come back in. So I'm going to farm all the way down, and I can throw some chip damage here. And I know that in the matchup, it's going to be more about the health of the Charmer versus versus the energy or the charge moves or anything. So it's mainly here about just doing as much chip damage as I can, so my own Togekiss is healthy enough to come in and take care of it. But my opponent had some different plans here. Right when my Giratina Alter gets very low, he brings in his third Pokemon, which is a Groudon. So it kind of makes sense, right? So you have 2 steel counters essentially versus the Togekiss lead to protect it. Kind of similar to what we have here, except that we have the Altered in the place of the Therian Landorus. So here, because Groudon is coming in, I have to make a decision here about how I want to approach this matchup because I am down a shield. And my preference here, because I know from the previous matchup that Groudon going into a Groudon with a shield disadvantage, you're probably going to get double Earthquaked while they can just shield anything that you're throwing. So my decision here is to come in with a Togekiss, and I know these Fire Punches aren't going to hurt too much, but if I can chip this Groudon as much as I can, or maybe even take a shield, I know that my Groudon in the back, we can potentially take out that Togekiss because it is very low right now. So here, just going to go for the Ancient Powers here. Because health is more important, the Groudon will be forced to shield here, and I'm just going to keep charming away until it expends all of its energy. Here, opponent has great fast move timing here, so he is able to throw on cue, and I'm going to be able to tank one more Fire Punch before going down, but you can see how much damage those charms are inflicting. So that's kind of one weakness of Groudon, is that to win against Togekiss, you have to time your moves very well, and then I want to bring in my own Groudon. So here, my opponent's going to throw a charge move here, and I thought this was going to be an Earthquake, so I wound up shielding, but either way, I would prefer that I have some health on my Groudon to be able to deal with this Togekiss. So Togekiss comes back, you can see a charm kind of snuck through, so I was wondering about the mechanics there, but either way, I'm going to get to another Fire Punch, and this Fire Punch is going to get Togekiss in range or so of another Fire Punch, but it's still got a little bit of health on it, and he winds up hitting a charge move here. So have to think about it a little bit. I was afraid that I'm not going to reach the next Fire Punch. So you can see here, this Flamethrower actually does a ton of damage. So I'm getting hit here, and I swap into my Giratina Altered because I know that Charm is a 3-turn move and Shadow Claw is a 2-turn move. So all I need to do is take 1 Charm's worth of damage onto my Giratina Altered and get this Togekiss into Mudshot range. So just by a little bit of sliver of health. So I bring in my Giratina Altered. You can see here the Togekiss is down to just a sliver of health, and now I can come in here and I have enough bandwidth to Mudshot down this Togekiss and then get to the last Fire Punch that I need to KO the enemy Groudon. So I think the Alter there, I was planning on using it to catch a move, but it wound up being really useful in the end because I got to deal just a little sliver of damage to that Togekiss so that I can Mudshot it down. Alright, getting into our third match, I'm going up against Salzami. And I'm going to be leading Togekiss into an Excadrill. So if you have seen my previous video on Excadrill, this is not a great matchup for Excadrill, but it can beat Togekiss in the 2-shield. And I start this matchup, I start to think about just going toe-to-toe with this Excadrill in the 2-shield, and I decide to kind of chicken out a couple of charms in, and I bring up my Giratina Altered. So my opponent counter swaps with Dialga, and right now I'm thinking there's probably an Origin in the back, so this is not a great situation for me. So here I'm going to deal as much damage as I can. and it's kind of up to me to decide which Pokemon I want to come in with, because I can come in with Togekiss and farm the rest of this Dialga down. It's not going to be able to hit another charge move against Altered, because these Dragon Claws are going to add up. They're dealing neutral damage, but still dealing quite a chunk. And my opponent decides to throw a charge move right before I get to my last Dragon Claw here. So really good timing by the opponent. And that's going to be an Iron Head that's going to knock me out. And I have to make a decision here. I decide to bring in the Groudon instead and just mud-shot this whole thing down. So kind of an aggressive move here. My opponent throws again, and I can pretty much tell from the counting that this is not going to be a Draco Meteor. So wound up not shielding that. Still does a chunk of damage, but I'm going to go ahead and commit straight to the mud-shot down. So in this particular case, this means that even if he has a back Pokemon that can potentially beat Groudon, I'm coming in with quite a bit of energy, and I can potentially hit 2 Earthquakes against it, which kind of opens up the avenue for Togekiss to maybe get to a Flamethrower against the Excadrill. So that's the win condition that I have in mind right now. And my opponent brings in his back Pokemon, which is also a Groudon. So here, I'm going to go for the Earthquake to get it as low as possible, and then I have to swap back into my Togekiss. So here, we're pretty much hard countered in the primary matchup and the secondary matchup. So the only win condition I have here is actually to go for a boost. So and I know boosts are not the best way to win. Of course, they're very unreliable, but I've got to go for the Ancient Power here against the Excadrill, and I still know that this is a 2-shield matchup that I end up losing just by a little bit, so I still have a win condition by potentially farming down with Groudon if the Excadrill is low enough. So, but I'm always saved by the boost here, and I get the boost on the first Ancient Power, which actually puts me in the driver's seat of this matchup. So here, I will commit all my shields to Togekiss, and get rid of Charm down this Excadrill. You can see how much those are chunking right now, and then I'm going to use my second shield on the Rock Slide, and right before he gets to the third one, I'm going to get another Charm in, and this is going to mean that the Excadrill is not going to reach the last Rock Slide that he needs. So unfortunately, here is a pretty short match because my opponent does decide to back out. So again, sorry for showing you guys this footage, but we had very few sets to play today, and unfortunately for my opponent, sometimes the boost happens. Happened to me quite a few times with the Giratina Origin going up against me today. So sometimes you got to reciprocate the favor, and that was the only win condition for me. Okay, for the fourth matchup, I'll be going up against Ryokohei 21. And I'll be leading Togekiss into the Giratina Origin form. So once again, great lead for our team, and our opponent safe swaps into Mewtwo again, which I can punish with the Giratina Altered. So make a huge mistake here. I know in the previous matchup I had been letting the first charge move go through for Mewtwo, and for some reason I was really feeling that he was going to Shadow Ball me. So here, I decided to actually shield up, and this is where the mistake happens, because the Origin's going to come back in, right? So I already have an answer for the Giratina Origin, so I'm actually just going to be down a shield. My opponent is going to probably just come back and sacrifice the Giratina Origin, expecting his back Pokemon to sweep the remainder of my team here. So here, I let this go, and unfortunately is the Shadow Ball. So should have let that first move go through and shield the second one, but my opponent's going to come back in with Giratina Origin. So I have here enough to get to 2 Dragon Claws, but again, the more Dragon Claws I throw at this Giratina Origin, A, the less farm I get on my Togekiss, and then B, the less use my Togekiss actually has in this matchup. So here it gets to another Dragon Claw here. It's not going to KO the Origin, and the Origin is going to wind up Shadow Clawing down my Giratina and come out with a bunch of energy. So again, bringing back the Togekiss, I'm expecting him to throw the Shadow Ball here because there's no reason not to throw the harder hitting move. And I'm gonna go ahead and tank it and then see what's in the back. So usually in this team composition, I'm expecting a Melmetal, except that my opponent swaps out and it's a Groudon. So this is where previously as an Excadrill pilot, I was really nervous about the Groudon matchup because it does seem like it's a really tough one to overcome. But this Excadrill, I threw a Charm before I left. It has 2 Mudshot advantage and it has a shield advantage. So and draw runs, they actually are gonna hurt. So you can see here on the first draw run, I decide to just take it. And it does a substantial amount. It almost does about 40% of Groudon's health, which I actually didn't know before. So maybe I should have simmed that matchup a little bit more when I was playing my Excadrill team from last season. But this is pretty impressive. And even if I'm on a 5 and 4 Mudshot cadence for Fire Punch, I need 14 Mudshots to try to KO this Excadrill. And he's already got the 2 Mudshot advantage, right? So as long as he keeps pace with me, he's going to be able to take out the Groudon here in the 2-to-1 shield scenario. So you can see here, actually let him Mudshot through right there, which makes it even worse. So here, my opponent's going to use his last shield as well, and then he's going to beat me right before I get to the last Fire Punch that I need. So here I know that I'm going to be KO'd, and it's up to my Togekiss here to come in and throw a charge move and try to get it as low as possible. And although I make it to the Ancient Power, this is a Rock-type move, so it's going to be It's going to be double resisted here by the steel and the ground typing, and we actually wound up doing a fake CMP where I get the fast move through, and the rock slide is going to KO. So in that match, made a couple of mistakes there. Definitely shouldn't be shielding the first move on the Giratina altered, because I can win against Mewtwo with the Shadow Claw damage, and there, you know, try to get fancy and call the Shadow Ball, but again, you need to leave your altered at a low health anyways, because your Togekiss still needs to farm energy, and it still needs to pull its part of the weight against the Origin matchup, right? So had I just saved that shield, or I had matched my opponent's shields if he wanted to win switch advantage, could have had a much better time for the Groudon, so that's a huge mistake that I made. And then even when he brought in the Excadrill, if I was already committed to charming down or charming to get to a charge move, probably should have just stayed in with the Togekiss, because my opponent would still be blind to what I have. He might have just thrown right away, and that might have given my Groudon a much better chance in the back. Alright, and going into the last battle of this of the set here, I'm going up against Rapple G, and unfortunately this battle is going to be a blowout here, because like I said, our team is designed to beat the Giratina Origin leads with the Melmetal in the back. However, you are going to be hard countered by the Kyogre lead with the Dialga and the Togekiss in the back. So this matchup ends up being a complete blowout, but mainly because my team is ABA weak to Kyogre, so kind of have to stay in with the Togekiss because my only counter is Giratina altered. But I'm going to find out very shortly that their backline has complete play against my Giratina altered, and there's nothing that I can really do in this scenario. So I actually wound up shielding the first surf here, trying to go for the ancient power and trying to get a boost, because I know that if I can force my opponent to swap out, I have a much better chance of potentially winning down the road. But my opponent doesn't fall for it, and I don't get the boost, and I have to eat the surf here. So in this particular situation, I have to bring in my Giratina altered to try to farm down as much energy as I can. And thankfully my opponent doesn't reach the surf here, but I'm going to find out very shortly that my Giratina altered basically has nowhere to go in this matchup. So expecting the Dialga to come in, I'm going to throw my 2 Dragon Claws, and after seeing Kyogre lead with Dialga coming in the back line, I already know that I'm going to be expecting potentially a Togekiss or maybe even a second Dragon in the back, so my Groudon has a lot of work cut out for it, and I'm not really sure if it can handle it. So here, my opponent is going to throw a charge move. I cannot shield because going down 2 shields to none to anything in this meta is going to create some problems here, and my opponent does have the Togekiss in the back. So unfortunately, I did get hard countered in this match, but I think it's important to showcase that that this is a team that you're going to see quite a lot in GBL. This is a very popular line from, I believe, Season 2, and it's kind of been able to prove that it can kind of play with the big boys and stick around in this meta. So fortunately, I come in here with the Giratina altered, and I'm going to try to do as much damage as I can. Have to wind up shielding this charge move, which is just going to be an ancient power. Does almost nothing, but I'm running out of health here. And although I can get to another Shadow Sneak and potentially KO this Togekiss, my opponent's going to deal as much damage as he can, and then he brings in the Dialga to wind up sniping me. So a fortunate ending to the set, but we were still able to go positive, and this is the set that actually got me into the 3100s. So a little bit of a climb from the end of Ultra League, which I didn't really play a whole lot, but the team was very enjoyable, and as you can see, some of the teams that you're able to hard counter, those are just very, very tough punishes. But again, no team is without weaknesses, especially in this case against 2 of the other popular lines, the Kyogre, Dialga, Togekiss line, and then the 2-0 Butters line. Alright, so that's going to do it for the 4th edition of Exploring Master Classic, where today I take a look at a Togekiss and a Groudon team anchored by the Giratina Altered Safe Swap. Again, a very cool option for me as I get to pilot Groudon for the very first time with that legacy move of Fire Punch. So tomorrow I'll be taking a look at some other teams, and this week I'm back on the plan of creating 1 video per day off of my streams to showcase how many different teams you can play in Master League, and we're going to get more budget towards the end of the week. So stick around for that. We're going to be unbenching some of the Master Premier Pokemon that kind of been collecting dust in our storage. So if you like this content, feel free to subscribe, comment, and like, and share with your friends, and I'll see you in the next video.